right. So I would start with a very obvious one. What are the common issues that you guys face when you receive an art portfolio? Naresh, you want to go?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so like there are there are lot of nice, beautiful looking art, and lot of like varieties of art people have done. Like they put it there in portfolio and stuff like that. But where and for what they are applying, it was not that clear. So let's say for Ajay, a lot of artists they apply for gaming studio, and there is a like I've seen lot. I'm sorry, but I've seen lot of portraits. So yeah, so it's a game is like particularly which studio you are applying for the kind of game they are developing. You should have a bit of idea, and you do a base work before applying to that particular studio, and look at that product and try to do some basic like art style what their studio is producing. That is a very basic one, and there are many stuff like like we got a like friend of mine expressed me today like yesterday like we got a JPEG resume. There is no clickable link. So there is very minor stuff, but that's like that first impression. So when we see that portfolio has to be appealing, should be stand out. So that's the few things I would start with.
Yeah, I guess first impression. I'm sorry, guys. All right. Thank you. Yeah, as you rightly said, the first impression is what counts. Etienne, your comments on this?
Yeah, I mean, on the same kind of note, I mean, there are many things that goes into this question. Like, it's a difficult topic. For me, you need to keep in mind what's actually the main goal of your portfolio. Your goal is to get a job, and you need to think about the perspective of the company that is looking to hire someone. And you need to think about the business. Because we are looking for a specific candidate to fill up a specific need for the business. And so your portfolio should reflect that in some ways. So it depends what position you're applying to. But for instance, if you're looking for a job in the game industry, let's say, like, I don't know, a casual game, you should put, like at the beginning of the portfolio, like concrete examples or exercise that you did specifically for a mobile game. Because that way we will know that you might be a candidate that could actually fill that position. It's not about compiling only your most beautiful and best looking work. It's about like making understanding the companies you are applying to that you could actually fill this business gap.
So just whatever comes in my answer.
Try the other one.
All right. So just to summarize this, what you meant was more than art. More than appealing, it should be relevant to what you're wanting to do or where you're wanting to go. Yeah, Shiraj.
Yeah, I agree with both Naresh and Etienne. I think relevance is the key, depending on what kind of role someone is applying for, and their portfolio is suited to the positions. One of the things which I think can be done in order to identify your relevance is research about the company you are applying for. So obviously you look at the portfolio of the games that they've created in the past, and you understand what kind of style and the projects these companies do. But apart from it, it's also the people who work there. And if you research a bit about them, look at their own individual art stations or their personal portfolios, so you understand what are the kind of people who are working here, and am I good enough now to come at the same bar as these people, and what are their online portfolios containing. So this can also help you decide the kind of examples that you need to include in your own art station portfolio or similar portfolios. and that probably also helps.
Yeah, even I agree with it. All right. So, let's imagine that, people have got this basic clear in their mind that, this should be my approach and, taking advice from you guys. And then when people actually get on to adding the artwork into their portfolios, then how important is the presentation? By presentation, what I mean to say is the kind of the artwork that is being put into your portfolio, or the amount of it. So one really common issue that we discussed and have been discussing over and over years, but don't really see much improvement there when it comes to very freshers. People, rather than focusing on quality, they focus on quantity, and there's a lot of artwork there of varying qualities. So again, I'll repeat my question: how important is the presentation of the portfolio?
Yeah, I mean, same, it's a bit more tricky actually to answer the question, especially nowadays, because back in the day when I started, internet was not a big thing, so portfolio were mainly done on paper. Nowadays, you have many tools actually and many ways to shape your portfolio, and you should take advantage of it. You have obviously ArtStation, which is like a big thing now. But I think the mistake that you shouldn't do is use ArtStation as a way to archive your work, because your portfolio should be like, you have really to tailor the portfolio and to make sure that the works that is in there is your most not beautiful work, but the work that is gonna, I mean, as Kshiraj said, gonna target the job, the position you're looking for, and the company you're looking for. And and when I said earlier that you also need to present work that shows that you will be able to fill the business gap that the company is looking for, one good way of doing it is like on ArtStation, like you have those pages for each project you created. And to me, like a good way to do it, so you need first to hook the audience, so put the beautiful pictures, but then try to explain a little bit of your process, uh, and treat each art pieces you presented like an exercise you did. Like for instance, I don't know, you created a piece of environment for a game. Explain your process, explain why you did that. Maybe try to break it down in different props, and you can show like a little bit of props design. And by showing all that, we know that you know first a little bit of pipeline, and we know that if we hire you as an environment artist, you are ready to go, and you already kind of know what you're talking about, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Another thing I feel is, when we are applying, we try to want to best showcase ourselves. We know a lot about us. We know our history. We know our work that we have done. And we always think that if the person who's going to look at our portfolio gets to see this, and all of these pieces that I have done in the past 5, 10 years, maybe it's going to lead to more impression as compared to only sending some of these examples. But let's try to understand what the recruitment process is. So there's a game studio, and they have a project where they have a position. It could be for any artist, like concept artist, rigger, animator, art director, and they create a headcount, they create a position for them, and then they assign a recruiter from HR department who helps into headhunting and for talent acquisition. So they start to take that position up. They are the ones who set up the interviews for you, and then there's a hiring manager, the person who has the authority to approve a certain candidate getting hired. Now, hiring manager is from the craft. They know how the work is to be done, what that person is most likely going to be their line manager, reporting manager. But the recruiter, the person from HR, obviously has also the understanding of craft, but they depend on the hiring manager. And the first question they generally ask the hiring manager is there any existing portfolio or reference example that you can give me which I can keep corresponding to when I'm screening applications. And in those cases, the hiring manager generally points to a certain portfolio, pointing into an arbitration page and saying, yeah, I'm kind of like looking like for a person like this. Obviously, this person is working at a really great company and he's not going to join, but we are looking for someone who has matching skill set. And in those cases, the recruiters start to have a very mathematical A's to A comparison and try to look at from those examples. And therefore, some very selected pieces for that role are enough to get your foot at the door, and you are then asked over for the next steps, where maybe if your portfolio pieces were not enough, they are going to ask if we have done more of these projects, and then you can show around and open your big Pandora box. But including 50, 60 samples, it sometimes also showcases that you are confused about it, you don't really know what's desired, and you're just trying in every possible way.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely, absolutely. Like as Shiraj mentioned, like I'll give a very good example back in when we are into animation. So that time that there was no much like online portfolio stuff, and we used to send only 5 drawings. That was the important. Like when Mayank mentioned, like the quantity and the quality. So this 5 drawings or 5 based a good piece of your art, that helps because like Ajana Sourcing Studio, so we get 100 of resume portfolios and people don't have much time. So that first page, first 5 drawings, that's all about. So that is very important. Yeah.
So, all right. Again, another question just popped into my mind. We've been talking about the artwork and the quality of it, or maybe keeping yourself versatile. You can still showcase the best artwork, although you're showing the versatility in parallel. Is it important for a game artist to showcase in a way that he knows the game art pipeline through and through, like not really showcasing the final renders or final the outcomes, maybe the gradual creation of the particular asset or the topology and everything? Is that important too?
I think it is to some extent. Once again, I think it really depends the role you're applying to. Obviously, if you want to become a 3D artist in the industry, you need to show that you understand the full pipeline of 3D creation. For a concept artist, it might be a bit less important, but it still is. I mean, especially when you're applying for a more senior position. We are expecting you to actually know the pipeline and to be as efficient as possible on day one. Yeah, I think that that's pretty much it for me. I would say that if you apply to a really specific position, you need to showcase that you know everything about it. Meaning that, for instance, if I am a concept artist, I will put in my portfolio like I don't know, 80%, 90% of it will be concept art. And if I know some other stuff, that might be at the end, at the very end. Like, oh, by the way, I know also a little bit of 3D, and this is what I can do. I know like UI as well, but you need to focus on the position you're applying to. I mean, for me.
Yeah, so I mean, as you mentioned, like if you don't know the game and you want to be a concept artist for the game, you don't play the game. So, I mean, where where your art is going to be inside. I mean, it's inside the film or animation, film or VFX, or is a game. You should know where is that art going to be performed. So you should know that the pipeline also where, let's say as a concept artist you do 2D and the next stage is going to on a 3D, and if you don't know that process, then you will be just like as a 2D artist you are just doing one side of art. You should know how it's going to be animate, how it's going to be inside the game engine, what is the optimization and all this. So based on that, sometimes it's a back and forth in the game while you creating the concept. So as an artist, we just got blast when we initially got the idea, hey, let's create one character. But eventually you'll come to know in the end, like there is a lot of optimization needed, a lot of compromise. So how to, like it's a lot of back and forth. So if you have a bit of idea, I mean, how it's going to work inside the game engine. So your design initially, you'll do the, really best. Yeah.
Also, speaking of pipeline, I think I want to highlight one more fact, which I believe you guys will agree as well. Um, we know that in studio environment, there are so many people who are collaborating on same tasks, same assets and everything. And despite how big this industry is, it's also small. People know each other. They come around work of the other people and they remember. So one of the advice that I try to give to certain people is always be mindful that if it's a portfolio piece that you're including, which is a combination of work done by several more contributors, try to highlight and mark it, like who did what was your role in it, because this allows the hiring company to understand your skills and your work from it, as well as also never get confused about, hey, I remember seeing this portfolio from someone else's PDF that arrived last year, and now I'm confused. Is it that person who did this, or is it this new person who's done it? And it just creates a really bad impression if you are pretending. And also, if you get hired with a certain assumption that you can do this, but then when you go there and yeah, we hired you because there was a really cool characters in your portfolio, and then now you're in the company and you are expected to draw characters, and then you mentioned that, oh yeah, those samples which I had were basically drawn by someone else. I just did the cleanup or coloring or whatever. So this is also something which is not going to work for people for long term.
Yeah, I also like completely agree with you. Like that's what we face many times. Like I remember one question whenever I apply to any companies, back in my job days. Why should we hire you? What is that different you are bringing to the table? I mean, if it is like as Shiraj mentioned, so it should not be look like, hey, I've seen somewhere. So be a little stand out, experiment, try out, and make yourself like, yes, because of this you should hire me. This is what I can bring to the a new thing I'll bring to the game or something like that. Yep.
Yeah, just coming back to the pipeline thing, I'm just thinking that something that to me is maybe more important than that, especially when you're junior and when you start in the industry. Obviously, you have less experience, you haven't been working on games, so your knowledge about the pipeline might be limited. But some things you actually can do and should do is to show in your portfolio that you understand games, that you play games, and that you put yourself in the place of the player. Because creating art for game is not about creating beautiful pictures, it's about creating like assets that serve the gameplay. And so if you find ways to show that in your portfolio, that's a really valuable point.
So, since this industry is also, this industry is ever evolving, and because of these last 2.5 years that were lost in the pandemic, so people actually learned to work in their own silos. There's no sense of competition or maybe comparison. For a fresher when wants to start working, of course they'll be preparing themselves in last these 2-3 years because of these the trying times that we had. So I personally believe that staying competitive is really required, and comparing yourself with others' work or seeking continuous feedback is actually very important. So what are the ways in which people could help themselves staying competitive?
So maybe I can try to answer.
Yeah, please.
Let's see how it goes. So a lot of times we talk about what a great portfolio is, or how can. But I think when we are referring to great portfolio, we are talking about skilled artists who are already in the industry, have worked, have experiences, and it's totally out of question. I think what's a question which never got asked is, what's a fresher portfolio? What's the first footstep portfolio? Because it's always expected that that portfolio is never going to be as good as what the person will end up being. And that's something which like makes me really curious to understand on what the fresher portfolio is. And in my perspective, from that standpoint, the experienced artist portfolio is the amount of knowledge and experiences gained in the past and a lot of credibility on the portfolio But for freshers' perspective, the portfolio is all about showing potential. I think that's the basic key which people judge from. You don't look at freshers' portfolio or junior positions portfolio to be best at the craft. It's more about the potential, and that's what Etienne also somehow tried to explain here when he mentioned about showing your process and your thinking, and that in that case, if you don't even know the pipeline, you can still make a very presentable showcase of your portfolio, and it shows your understanding, the mindset of learning, having a very research-oriented thought process, and almost like basically a big promise that if you are given the chance to come down to the company, there will be a very fast track for you to learn and grow and become like a senior artist in 2 years instead of 8 years of investment on you.
Yeah, I totally agree with Kshiraj, because like all the technicalities of the job is actually something quite easy to teach and to learn when you join a company. But what is actually not that easy to learn is the fundamentals art skills, and those takes a lot of time. And this is what we will be looking for first, especially for junior position, to make sure that you have a good understanding of composition, perspective, anatomy, and all that jazz. And so because of that, you really need to be careful of the pieces you put in there, not to show like weaknesses.
Yeah, also like sometimes like I would love to see like let's say a fresher, a lot of experiment I would like to see. Like it's not only the digital art, but also like how they are draw with the pencils, modeling the clay, maybe the watercolor or acrylic painting or whatever. Why that is important, like for like as a fresher, and when you dream for the bigger this thing. So eventually you are going to give some new creation of the character or environment of the world. If you don't know the fundamentals, as you said, like the basic and everything, you are just going to repeat what already we have. We expect you to bring something new. And that is all artists, every artist, they have a dream. I want to have my own identity. So that will come once you have all this process. And that if that shows in a portfolio as a fresher, I'll pick that guy up immediately because I understand this guy is going to give me something new. And like as he goes as a senior or something. Yeah.
So, Naresh, on that note, a lot of times what we see is people, idolize somebody, some established artist, and they follow those artists insanely on Instagram and everybody, every platform, and they try and imitate the art as well. So that is one sort of approach for grooming yourself as an artist. Another one is being original. So does somebody need to create that balance, or based on the job or requirement, both approaches are fine? What are your comments on that?
I really like Siraj's work. I'm a big fan of his work. But you can't see what exactly Siraj is doing, I'm also doing. I'm learning from him how he's doing, what is thought process,
Okay.
what is approach, how he, play around with the colors and the shapes.
Okay.
Correct? We both are from the animation background, okay? And we understand very well the shapes because that helps animate the character. But same time, I also like try to establish myself so that like I have my own identity, and I gather a lot of information from a lot of people. But how I'm using that, that is all about, correct? And idealizing definitely it's a great because you must have some grooves. You can follow that how they're working, what is their thought process, but don't replicate. So
So
that's my
this
suggestion.
is a point of view which is coming from a very, very experienced
Okay.
artist. What if we try and think from a fresher's perspective? The same question. All right, let me rephrase this question,
Okay.
and it will be for all of you guys. I want to ask you guys. Uh, looking back into your initial career days, just before starting your career, or maybe you had just started your career. Are there any regrets or any things that you would want to change if given a chance? That you can go back into the past and change few things that would have impacted your current or your current career? We'll start with you only.
Yeah, I always dream for that. I mean, yeah. And this, after 20, 25 years of working in this art field, I always wanted to go back to my BFA days so that I could have drawn more. So, like experiment more with the like lot of other materials, like pencil drawings, like sketching anatomy stuff and like that. Yes, during those days it was like directional less. I don't know which direction I'm going. Now I have a clear idea what I am doing right now. If I go back particularly for the gaming, I could have, like again prepare myself. So that's
All right, fair. Etienne,
Yeah,
what would you want to change in your past?
that's a tough question. So many things. I think one of the things, and this is related to my background. I'm French, and France has a big and long history with art, and and the education for art in France is quite specific, I would say, because I think we treat like art maybe too seriously. Like it's art and the artist, like it's such a big thing, and so it's good in a way because all the education in art school back in France, they are all about the academic art and the fundamental art skills, but not so much turn forward the industry and actually like finding a real job. So I didn't know anything about video games, about animation. I just knew about how to be like an artist, basically doing illustration, painting, and drawing from life. Um, but for you guys, it's quite different. I don't know what's the situation in India is, but I know that you have internet and you have access to so many tools to learn from, which is quite incredible. And so I agree with you, like saying that if you manage to identify what you want to do and you have the focus to put yourself into these specific things using internet, like you can already be like super ready to enter the industry as at 20 years old.
So I started back in 2002, and that makes like about 20 years in the industry for me. And from one perspective, I see everything connecting the dots, leading to where I am. And then at the same time, I can look at my career and identify so many spots where I can clearly say, this guy didn't know what he's going after or what he wants to do. And those were decisions that were made in my life, like where I ended up doing so many different things, which if I have to pick and say, I wouldn't be doing them. Like I went on to working for web designs, and that's completely off track and irrelevant for where I am. So if I want to judge myself from where I am right now, I'll definitely say I shouldn't have done web design. But it somehow connected the dots and led me to here. So it's very hard to say what I want to change because I still feel fortunate for where I am right now. But at the same time, there's one thing I definitely don't want to change. Maybe I can say that is I always emphasized on discovery, and I always emphasized on my own discovery. Like there are so many introvert artists as well, and I understand like people can be very different individuals, but if you are in a professional commercial space, you're not making paintings for yourself, and you want to work. That's something that I continued to do even when I had no knowledge or no understanding. When I started my career, my focus was I want to get discovered. And I always tried to be outspoken, aware, involved, engaged, and meet people, show them around work proudly, even if it was good or not. Whatever tools which were available back then, now the technology has changed. We are getting old now. We don't be so active anymore on being discoverable. But there was time when I tried to use whatever accessible tools were there for discovery and invested on getting discovered. Because if I look at all of my career, there would be only 20% of opportunities and jobs that I landed onto, which were based on my own initiative of applying for them. And then 80% of those might have come from someone discovering and reaching out to me and wanting to offer a position for their company.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, if there is something would like to change in my personality back then is that, like many artists, I'm kind of an introvert. I was super shy. And the thing is that in the industry, and it's still the case nowadays, like most of the things that will happen in your careers is going to happen by the people you're going to meet. And, and so I believe that if I wasn't so shy back in the days, I could have met many people earlier. I could have maybe get some job like more easily, or at least get some really good advice or insights. So don't hesitate to come to those kind of events, but to go to the professionals to show your portfolio and to just have a chat with them.
Yeah. And I guess this generation, the newer generation, is already very outspoken, at least much better than us, who started two decades ago. These guys are up there already. All right, so I'm going to give it to the audience now for more questions. Yeah. Guys, can somebody hand over the mic, please?
Hello panelists, I am Hiramba, 3D artist, intrigued by the metaverse currently. So my question to you is, how often should our portfolios change with the fast evolving tech and after we learn new skills?
All right, who's going to take that up? Yeah. Can you please repeat your question, buddy?
Question is, how often should our portfolios change with the fast evolving tech and after we acquire new skills?
I can start and throw my 2 cents in there. I don't think it matters that much. I mean, it's great. It's great for you to stay on top of things and technicalities of your job. But what matters the most for me is not to showcase that you are still on top of things, but to showcase work that actually makes sense for the company you're applying to. There are so many examples of people that their dream was to be hired by Blizzard, and they get hired just by making fan art of Blizzard. And I think this makes much more sense to do that than just showing off that you know like all the technicalities of the job.
I would actually also want to chime in here. So what I believe is whatever you have in you, whatever the skill sets that you have. So of course you'll consider the most updated ones. Your portfolio should showcase what you have in you. So you have to keep it updated if you've got acquired newer skills, definitely.
And also I have a question like, how do you actually apply for it? Like, do you start spamming your portfolios to everyone, or you specifically select some companies and then apply to them?
Should I take that up?
How do you attract work?
No. So the guy says if you want to take up a job, what should be the approach? Should you just try spamming all the organizations or what? No. The answer is no. You should actually target where you want to go, where do you want to work, what do you want to work on, curate your portfolio accordingly, and then apply it.
Also,
Spamming doesn't help.
Also, I'll also add to it. Like, yeah. So, are you looking for a job, or are you looking for making a game in a particular company? Because a lot of people have, like, hey, I want to join so and so studio. I want to be a part of that game company or game that product or game. So you just apply to them, right? So when you look for a job, yeah, you just keep spamming. So so you have to. I mean, definitely you have to fix your like what exactly you wanted to do and target that company, make portfolio around that project games, then apply to them. Yeah, that's what I guess.
Yeah,
Okay, thank you.
yeah, it makes a lot of
Thank you for
sense.
asking the question.
I mean, back in the day when I started, I didn't start it straight up in video games. I mean, at some point you just need a job, and you just need to start somewhere. So like KingKshiraj, I started in web design and marketing. It wasn't the best job, but at least I had something, and I could then have more time to tailor my portfolio to apply to the companies I wanted to work at.
All right. Who's going to go next?
Thanks for the great session, guys. A very quick one here. How important is it to include description along with your artwork?
Kshiraj, what do you want to answer that?
The description, including the artwork.
How important is to include the description along with the artwork in your portfolio?
It's a great question. I think the way I see it is more in the presentation perspective. Um, how organized and accessible your portfolio is depends on how you are choosing to author it. Like if you have a mindset of graphic design and something, then you invest on creating clear pages with picture somewhere, a bit of a paragraph to complement the text versus picture, all those things, and it goes well along. And then there are some really hardcore artists. They have a clear mindset. I just make static renders. They're one page by one page, and that's it. So description, not a lot of people read it. Only those who are excited and curious about your portfolio and spend a lot of time, they like to read a little underline messages about the topic, the process, and comments over there. Uh, to me, I don't see it's a main important thing. Yeah.
I think absolutely like that visual description will help rather than the any written description or something like that. So what my point is like as Shiraj mentioned, like if you can show little breakdown, the experimental, and maybe sometime as a concept artist even we do like how is going to be look inside the game and that particular character in that environment. I mean, some, like just put, I mean, just sample or something that helps. Description, yes, in a lot of times, if you are a 3D artist or 3D modeler or something, kind of, like that bit of that pipeline also will help to find out the art director to hire you because they will have a bit of idea, like the depth, the knowledge you have in the making that particular piece. Yes, definitely help, but more visual description would help. That's what I think.
Even I want to pitch in on that one. So exactly like you said, there is one scenario where I believe that adding a description is required. A lot of time, what we see is, multiple people sending their portfolios, but there is a common artwork. So what actually happens there is somebody would have worked on the modeling part of it, or someone else would have worked on the texturing part of it, or some other part of the pipeline. So if you're including an artwork where you've not really fully created it from scratch to end, and you work just on one domain or one part of it, then you should definitely, describe it. Etienne, you were going to say something.
One thing I would like to add before we start. So, many times I have seen that project work. Let's say you are in a part of, I mean, let's say mid-level artist or senior artist, whoever are playing, they will say that in for this game, for this character creation, I have worked. So there are like modeler, there are GBrush artists, there are like low poly artists, maybe texturing artists, baking artists. So you have to describe that what your involvement in particular that piece of art, that is also like that clarity I have. Sometimes I have seen like I have done this. Okay, you completely done this. I did texture. Mention that, please. Yeah, that would help.
Absolutely. I
Yes.
guess
Yeah.
the mention of tools used to create that art is still important, in my opinion. Rest, I guess, I agree with most of you. Well, there's a follow-up there. Technology versus art. Now, what I meant here is more of if you're a great artist but not very cool in technology, what's the future of this candidate?
He's saying about like there's also a lot of question about technology versus art. So do you want to specify about how what was the role of describing the technology used in the creation of the work versus your own skills and labor?
Yeah, just to, I'm afraid that I'm gonna repeat like what Shiraj says. I mean, to me, what really matters is the thought process, not much the tools. I don't really care about the tools. As you mentioned, like there is many ways to do your research. We hired a girl, and she was crafting puppets to do character design, and for us that was amazing. And there is nothing to do with technology there. Uh, yeah, it's really about the thought process because this is something that is really difficult to learn. And if somebody doesn't have like a clear, organized thought process, this is something that might be super difficult for us to change. Uh, and and actually, on the same topic, yeah, you guys might have noticed that most of the companies now they are asking you for a test, and they are asking that because they can't see in the portfolio that what is actually your thought process. So if you manage to showcase that in your portfolio, not only will you will have a foot in the door, but maybe you might skip the test.
Does it
Right,
answer your question?
thanks. No, I've actually got lost, and then I'm going to pass on the mic to the audience behind me. This master of one or jack of all trade, are you a vehicle artist, prop artist, or any other type of artist? What is your preference as an employer? Would you prefer somebody who's asking literally, okay, I just need vehicle person?
I can start on that. I think it really depends the companies you're applying to. Like if you go to big studios, it tend to not really exist anymore because the jobs are getting more and more specialized. But if you go to an indie studio, that might be quite the opposite because the teams are much smaller, and so you might have to do a bit of everything. Back in my days, like 20 years ago, that was a big thing. As an artist in video games, I did UI design, I did animation, I did character design, environment. I was doing a bit of everything. Nowadays, it's not the case anymore. Like we have people focusing only on environment, we have people only on character design, and sometimes it's even more like split up. Sometimes you have people just doing rendering, and you have people doing the designs. So it really depends. Like there is no one good answer to it.
Yeah, I mean, so back in when this gaming boom and all this came to India, like I wanted to make a game. So as a only a character designer or a concept artist, I cannot be involved in a throughout. So what I did, like I've been a part of like as I mentioned, like and the creating UIs, understanding the animations, bit of how these things, my art is where is going, where and how it's going to react. So I would people like that, but nowadays people are very much clear about like I want to be a GBrush artist, I want to be a modeler. That's fine, absolutely fine. But yeah, it's I would say like person to person. If you want to become a gamer, you have to bit of knowledge of everything, and if you want to just be a master in your craft, that is also fine. But yeah,
So my
it's
take
all
on that
about
question would
interest.
be, uh, you know, you of course cannot master everything. So you got to master one or two domains, but you have to know the other parts of the pipeline because you would not want an artist to make mistakes for the other people who are taking care of the rest of the pipeline. So you should know the whole pipeline, but again, focus on some area of it. All right, we are left with just 2 minutes.
Right? Or can we continue? Like, we need to prepare for the other one, or
Let's ask for one more round of questions. Yeah, there are a lot of hands there raised.
so maybe
So
one
we'll
more.
go quick, guys. Can somebody pass on the mic, please?
So I want to ask, would you prefer, like in case of portfolios, would you prefer polished portfolios more or artist who is like he has insight into the pipeline, like during the concept art phase, where if he has portfolio pieces like not so polished but functional, like he has expression sheets, model sheets and stuff, no prop callouts for the character he has made related to it, or rather you would go for the polished piece. I want to know your thought process on that.
uh, if I am very correctly. So you are asking for is a polished artwork or is the like as long as it's convey my story, that artwork is enough. I think as a concept art is never going inside any game. Okay, it's concept art is for all the like for the designer, for the developer, for the art director, for everyone, for the production cycle, right? So as long as it's convey, as long as it's tell the story, as long as it's tell the functionality, I think that's enough. My understanding.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, I would say actually a little bit of both is still valuable because even if you're a concept artist, most of the time your concepts are going to be passed along to a 3D environment artist or character artist. So you need to show that you have a pretty good understanding of how to render materials, lights, and forms. And so having like couple of polished pieces is not going to hurt.
Yeah, totally. And I kind of heard both your answers, and I agree to both those mindset of role. I think the it also maybe depends on the kind of teams that you're building. Like for example, at some place, all that matters is just ideas, and then there are dedicated people who are going to make key art. Like concept art is a very tricky space. Are you responsible to create concept which goes in that title, or are you responsible for creating key art, which kind of like serves for as like it's shippable? So at some places maybe there can be someone else for key art, and at some places it's best that you do it because you're the only one. You're the painter. Like there's no one else.
Yeah, I mean the last line. So that your concept art should inspire the whole team. Has to they can see the game, like from your piece of artwork.